Hello, YouTube community. It's Robert S., and welcome back to RobScure Music. Today's video is a response to Steve Schnee's Holy Trinity Challenge for 2025. I'll put a link to his video and to his channel below. Hopefully you can check that out. Steven is a great guy. He has a channel. He is the CD Junkie. So he shows a lot of CDs. He's got a huge collection. And he does this fantastic, let's call it an event, on Tuesdays where he does what's called a ski lodge. And it harkens back to some of the great music we listened to in the past. So check that out on Tuesdays. He's also involved in so many other things. He's got Schnee TV and all sorts of things going on. You never know what you're going to get with Steven, but we know what we have this time. This challenge is to find artists that have at least 5 studio albums, and you pick 3 that you think are their Holy Trinity. Now, these 3 need to be studio albums, so they can't be live albums, studio albums that were released consecutively. So let's say, for example, an artist has 5 albums and you think their first, second, and third are great albums, you pick those. Or if you think maybe 3, 4, and 5 were good. So you get the idea. Anyway, I think it can be any genre. It can be from any decade of music, although we tend to stick with the 60s, 70s, and 80s around here. But what I did was I picked, I think it was 8 artists to do. And I could have probably picked more, but honestly, there were some like the Boomtown Rats that I thought of, but as I watched Steve's video, he did it. So I'm not going to repeat that. And hopefully I'm not repeating other videos, or hopefully not too many other videos. I did watch Matthew Street's video. I don't think I have any duplications here. So let's get started. And we'll start, and this is going to be alphabetical. One of my favorite groups from the 80s, and one of my all-time favorite albums of the 80s. I would dare say one of my all-time favorite albums ever. ABC, The Lexicon of Love. An amazing album. And it was their, I believe, their first album, actually. So, amazing debut. Then they released, and I should probably take this out of the plastic so we don't have too much glare. Excuse me a moment. Beauty Stab. Another great album. Doesn't quite get the recognition of The Lexicon of Love, but this is an amazing album. And this has got, the hits were, That Was Then, But This Is Now, and SOS. But there's so many other great tunes on here. They followed that up with yet another really fun and I think fantastic album. And this is How to Be a Millionaire. Slightly different lineup, but still has that ABC sort of sound to it. A little bit different. You can see a little bit of their exploration in those 3 albums, but absolutely fantastic. And that, I think, is the Holy Trinity for ABC. Next, we have Elvis Costello. My Aim Is True. Classic album by Elvis. By this Elvis, anyway. He follows that up with This Year's Model. Again, much like ABC, this is one of my all-time favorite albums ever. Absolutely amazing. Start to finish, you just have to listen to every song on this. It's perfect. And then he follows that album up with Armed Forces. Another absolutely incredible album from Elvis Costello. And I'm not going to talk a lot about these albums. I don't want to make this video too long. But continuing alphabetically, Dave Edmunds. And this is Tracks on Wax. Ooh, kind of a creepy picture there on the back. But this has Trouble Boys and Not a Woman, Not a Child. What else is on here? Every song is fantastic, I think. Deborah, that was a bit of a hit. A1 on the Jukebox, Thread and Needle, Heart of the City. And Heart of the City you may know from others who've done that song, like Nick Lowe, and I think Elvis Costello as well did that. He repeats. He follows that up with Repeat When Necessary. And boy, you can play this one on repeat. This is an amazing album. And then his third in the Holy Trinity, Twangin'. Love this album as well. He's such a great guitarist. A lot of fun songs as well. Now we're going to step back a little bit further into the early 70s. And I was working in a store called Alexander's. For you older folks, you'll know exactly what that store was. And I worked in the furniture department. Nobody really came to Alexander's for furniture unless they wanted a glass etagere or whatever, bookshelf or something inexpensive. But anyway, there was a watch repair section as well, and it was right near the furniture department. So I used to go over there. There's a young girl that worked there, and we would talk, and she told me about this artist that she liked, Dan Fogelberg. I took one listen, and that was it. Became a lifetime Dan Fogelberg fan. Unfortunately, he's passed now. But this album, Souvenirs, which is his, I believe, second album after Home Free, amazing album. He's got a lot of fantastic musicians on many of his albums. Got Joe Walsh, Kenny Passarelli, who plays bass, Russ Kunkel. Who else is on here? Al Perkins, let's see, Don Henley, Joe Lala, Graham Nash is on here on The Long Way. Absolutely amazing. And it's a gatefold, artwork by Dan. So, great album. Then he follows that up with Captured Angel, one of my all-time favorites albums of all time. When it comes to obscure, well, I should say obscure because he wasn't really obscure, but I think some of this earlier stuff is lesser known Dan Fogelberg, and I think this is an incredible album. And again, we have a gatefold, lyrics. Then his third in the Holy Trinity, Netherlands. He does a lot of these in falsetto, and I enjoy it thoroughly. Again, gatefold. So that's my Holy Trinity for Dan Fogelberg. He does have other great albums, as do many of these artists that I've already showed, but they're not part of a trinity, if you will. So let's see, what would be next? Oh, okay. Now we jump from, unfortunately, F all the way to S. Ringo Starr. Classic album by the former Beatle, Ringo. His 1973 album, produced by Richard Perry, who passed away last year, toward the end of the year. Gatefold, complete with the booklet that many of you have probably seen. I should probably just take it out. There's the gatefold. There. Lyrics. images. Amazing album. Closest thing we would get to a Beatles album after they broke up, because all four Beatles are on this album. Not together, but close. He follows that up with, and now, unlike the CD Junkie Steve, I have both vinyl and CDs. For some reason, I could not find my Goodnight Vienna album, the LP. So, Goodnight Vienna on CD. Another great album. Got Elton John on here with Snookeroo, and I love Elton John. So, that's the second of the Trinity. And then you have Ringo's Rotogravure. A lot of people, I think, see that and they have trouble pronouncing it. I'm not even sure I pronounced it right. And then we've got, a little bit of sticking here on the gatefold. But that's his Trinity. Next, and I only have CDs for this one, 10,000 Maniacs. And again, they've got a lot of great albums. But in terms of a Trinity, we have three consecutive. In My Tribe starts it off with the socially conscious lyrics from, why am I drawing a blank? Natalie Merchant. And they follow that up with Blind Man's Zoo. And the third in that Trinity, Our Time in Eden. A lot of big hits on here. I mean, they always had hits, but, These Are Days, I think, was an amazing song. Far and Few Between. How You Grown is great. Candy Everybody Wants. You heard these on the radio back in the 80s. So, absolutely amazing. And then for my last Holy Trinity, I'm going to an artist that I've always, it seems seemingly all my life, I've really enjoyed listening to this artist. And this is a country artist that I saw on TV when I was a young teenager. I think I was 13, actually. And I saw her on, I don't even remember what show it was, and I'm pretty sure she was with Conway Twitty. And that was it. I had to have like everything she did, basically. Tanya Tucker. And this is one of her two albums that are named, called Tanya Tucker. This has Lizzie and the Rain Man and San Antonio Stroll. I'm Not Lisa is on here. When Will I Be Loved? Son of a Preacher Man. Can't do country without Tanya, in my opinion. And she follows that up with Lovin' and Learnin'. More great classic songs from Tanya. And again, she's got a gazillion great albums, but not all of them have great songs on it. These three, I think, do. You can listen to these from start to finish. I can anyway. Pride of Franklin County, Depend on You, Ain't That a Shame? I mean, You've Got Me to Hold On To. After the Thrill Is Gone, she does the Eagles, a cover of the Eagles song. Here We Are, My Cowboy's Getting Old. Great stuff from Tanya. Then she gets a little bit more mature here with Here's Some Lovin'. And this says, Here's Some Love, Round Around the Bottle, Gonna Love You Anyway, You Just Love the Leaving Out, The Gospel Singer, Take Me to Heaven. Great album. And her two most recent albums are absolutely amazing. I mean, you know that all of our favorite artists from the 70s are getting up there in age, aren't we all? But her last two albums are really sort of heart-wrenching because they kind of cover that. And this is an elderly Tanya now facing sort of that fate, that destiny, and reminiscing and sort of, reflecting back on her life. And those are two incredible albums. If she had come out with a third, I could have had that as my Trinity. But anyway, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Again, check out Stephen Schnee. I mentioned him, so check out Matthew Street as well on YouTube. And stay well, friends. And until next time, remember, if the music strikes a chord, let it play.